Hello and welcome to Denton's Den with me, Matt Denton. I've spent over 3 decades working in the UK film and television industry, primarily within creature effects, specialising in animatronic control systems. I've been lucky enough to work with some incredible creature effects teams on projects like Harry Potter, Jurassic World, and many creatures and droids in the Star Wars universe, including BB-8. My career has taken me all around the world, and during that time I've met some incredibly interesting people, both inside and outside of my industry. And in this series I hope to sit some of them down for a cup of tea and a chat so that you get to meet them too. My guest this week is senior animatronic designer Tim Berry. Tim's been working within the special effects and creature effects industry for over 20 years on projects including Doctor Who and Star Wars. Welcome, Tim Berry.
Thank you, Matt Denton.
Oh, where's my notepad? Hang on a sec. Hang there. Have some of your tea. No, make that a bit more slurpy. God's sake. What are you like? Deliberate. Deliberate.
Of course it is. Did you want serious, Tim?
No. So, Tim,
Hello.
obviously we've been working together for about a decade now, pretty much, on Star Wars.
Yep.
I don't think we'd met before that, although you've been in the industry as well. I've been in it 30 years and you've been in it for quite a while now. But I don't think we'd crossed paths, have we?
We got close to meeting. In
Did
fact,
we?
no, we did actually meet before we worked on Star Wars.
Oh, no.
Um,
Oh, no.
we got close to meeting, but I bottled it.
Really?
Yeah.
What
It was.
happened?
Do you remember when Purple Maria did an event
Yeah.
where it was like creature,
Yeah.
like a creature show?
Yeah.
And you were there, and you
That's
had your
a
little.
IC Hexapod is next door.
Yeah. I remember going there, and I remember
No.
seeing you.
No.
And I was going to come up and say hello and introduce, but I kind
No.
of bottled it.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't have much confidence back then. So yeah, and
Honestly?
that was the first time I'd seen you in a place.
Man, that was... So I'm just going to go back. That's 2006. Yeah. Oh, my God. I couldn't believe that. And I can't believe I never knew that. You've only just told me. Brilliant.
Yeah, did I not mention that?
No,
Mentioned it
you
before?
never
Okay.
told me that.
And then the second time I met you was before I'd started working on Rogue One. I think you were all on episode 7.
Yeah.
And I came to the pub one evening. This was before I even knew I was starting on Rogue One.
Yeah.
And I came to the pub evening one, and I sat next to you, I think, and then we just started chatting.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what it was about.
Oh, that was nice.
No, you were lovely, yeah. There's a lot of people there I knew, but
Yeah.
obviously I was very nervous because
Yeah.
it's like being in an environment that I wasn't
Yeah.
working in. But no, you were fine. You were great and stuff like that. And then,
Because my first meeting with Neil was not very good. And I've told him this. Neil Scanlon, this is our boss, Creature Effects, head of Creature Effects. Yeah, it wasn't great. And I've told Neil the story. He went, I can't believe I did that, but it was true.
Really?
But anyway,
What
it's
happened
fine.
with
It's all
you
fine
and
now.
Neil?
Oh, he just completely blanked me.
right.
Like, totally blanked me. I stood next to him introducing myself and he didn't even turn around. Anyway, I don't want to say that because he'll be like, oh no, it wasn't like that. But it did happen, but he didn't remember.
Yeah,
He was focused.
Was this when you were at Henson's then? Or?
No, it was after he left Henson's. Yeah, he'd set up Scanlon Studios. It was years later. I was actually working on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire at Elstree Studios. And
Okay.
he was in there, is where his workshop was, and someone said, you should go and introduce yourself, And I did, and it went horribly wrong, and then I didn't really meet him again until 2012 when we did Prometheus. But anyway,
okay.
that's another story. This is about you. So we nearly met at Maria's thing, and I can't remember what that's called. I've still got the flyer for that somewhere. Yeah, the Monster Mash or something.
Yeah, Monster Mash. I
Yeah,
think that's
Monster
what it
Mash.
was. Yeah, in the centre of London somewhere.
It went down really well. That
It
good
was
fun.
lovely. Yeah, there was loads of people there.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
knew from the industry and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But,
We sort of met there, or nearly met there. We met in the pub, and then we met when you started on Rogue One.
yes.
So when you came in to start on Rogue One, you'd already been in the industry for how long before? What had you been doing? Where had you been?
Do you want to hear the whole backstory?
Yeah.
So when I was at college, so I'd finished school and I went to college. I couldn't do my A levels. I didn't do very well on my GCSEs, so I had to retake my GCSEs for a year.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was going to go into media studies.
Right.
That's where I was going to go. Anyway, I'll cut this story because it's a bit boring. But I found a book in the library. It was like a special effects book, and I was really obsessed with it. I'd been obsessed with films for a long time. And then it wasn't. So after that, I'd finished college. I didn't end up doing media studies because I was offered a job, and it was like I can earn money instead of going to college. So I decided to do that. And it was a few jobs later, I had some money from something. I can't remember what it was. Either it was a payoff from a job or something like that. So I decided to look into courses for special effects. And this is when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And I found a course in London that was run by a company called AnyFX.
I looked at the same course.
Right? Was it like a 2-day?
Tom something, wasn't it? The guy who owned it, Tom something. I remember. Yeah, it was a 2 or 3 day special effects.
Yes. Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah.
And so I went and did that for 2 days.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was a bit weird mix. It was like a mixture of like bullet effects, and also it was a mixture of applying how to run foam latex and all that kind of stuff. Years later, I didn't realise that the guy that was teaching foam latex was Mark Coulier.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, right, okay.
It wasn't until later on that I
yeah.
realised it was him.
Another one of our colleagues that's
Done very well for himself.
Yes, amazing. Yeah.
Then after I did the course, obviously it started to take a bite, and I was like, I need more of this. And then I managed to find a course that was running, like doing a special effects course, based up in Retford, near Sheffield, Lincolnshire, that kind of area. And I managed to apply on the last year they were doing grants,
right,
before they went into having to pay for your education.
Yeah.
It was like a media makeup course. There was a weird mix. It was like TV makeup, bits and bobs like that. But it was quite open, so you had the ability to kind of do your own things. There was like gore effects and like creature heads and all that kind of stuff, running foams and all that stuff. While I was there, I managed to meet some people there. Met a Spanish guy and an Irish lady, and one of our tutors, a guy called Jeff. And after that, we decided to move to Sheffield and open up like a little special effects company.
Right.
And it was mainly working on low budget stuff, because Sheffield they had like Sheffield Independent Film, and they had like a media school there and stuff like that. So it was quite a nice little hub for that kind of thing. We weren't earning any money.
Right.
We were basically on income support.
Right.
But we were working on films where they were just paying us for the materials.
Okay.
And we were just working on
Wow.
low budget stuff. And it was a real mix of, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, I don't know how the hell we managed to afford
a
workshop. But we had a workshop in an office building where we were running resin molds, foam latex, and all that kind of stuff, annoying our neighbours because there was smells going through all the system and all that kind of stuff.
So I knew you previously had a company. Is this the one you're talking about? Is it the same one? Was there's something else later on?
No, it's gone through various different phases.
Okay.
So I had me and this there was the Irish lady, we set up a company. We managed to get a grant from the Prince's Trust.
Yeah.
So I managed to buy some, equipment like, machining equipment. Brought my first lathe and all that kind of stuff. Didn't know how to use it back then. And we were just basically working low budget. We were having a really good time because it was basically people just coming to us and say, "Can you do this?"
Yeah.
And we were like, "Yeah, we'll give it a go." We didn't know how the hell we were going to do it.
Yeah.
What happened was I had a fallout with the Irish lady.
Right.
So then that kind of went a wayside.
Yeah.
She moved away. I then kind of started running the company on my own, and we started doing bits and bobs. Other people came in to help out that have now come down to this industry and gone off to do well for themselves. It was kind of funny because back then we got to meet quite a lot of people, because back then, I don't know if you remember, the industry wasn't that big.
Yeah.
So we managed to meet...
What year are we talking now? What's roughly?
So this would have been over 25 years ago. So I would have been about 26.
Yeah.
So that would have been 26.
Yeah. Okay.
26
The
years.
late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I met Andy Calhoun for the first time before he got into the industry.
Yeah. Who's another colleague, animatronics designer.
Animatronic genius. Yeah, very good. But funny enough, like years later on, when I moved down here and I started setting up companies, quite a few people would come to me and go, "Oh, I sent you my CV."
Oh yeah.
And we were a low budget company.
Yeah.
We weren't really earning any money at all. We weren't earning.
No.
We were not earning enough to make a living, which is why we were able to claim income support. So we weren't cheating the system. Right? As time went on, I got to know another guy who went to the same course as me, a guy called Tristan Veslaus. he was very good because he was very much able to talk to people, so he managed to get a lot of jobs in. He had his own contacts and stuff like that. One of the most prominent things we worked on before we moved down here was a film called Dead Man's Shoes, by Shane Meadows, which was done by a company called Warp Films, which we were kind of involved with at the time. We didn't know how successful that film was going to be, but now it's become like a massive cult classic.
Really? Okay, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, and then as time went on, we got involved with another guy called Jake West, who's a kind of horror writer, horror film director. He'd done a few low budget stuff, and he offered us a chance to work on a film called Evil Aliens, which is like a gory horror classic.
Low budget.
Low budget, but kind of enough for us to kind of do some stuff. So we ended up moving down to High Wycombe.
Right.
And we had a workshop.
Yeah.
And we had a few people working for us. You know, we were paying them like £200 a week.
Right.
And we were paying ourselves £250 a week.
Wow.
You know, which was nothing, compared to what it is.
No.
For me, it was like one of the best times of me working in the industry because we had free will to kind of do, he entrusted in us to do it. And we did all the effects and we had a great time. There was babies coming out of like stomachs and aliens, and arms being ripped off.
So at this point you're doing like effects as much as you are creatures, or more effects than a bit of everything.
It was a mix of everything. Prosthetics.
You do makeup, prosthetics,
gore effects. Right, we kind of split it. I wasn't really doing much animatronic stuff back then. So we kind of split it. Like Tristan was kind of the sculptor and the prosthetic guy. I was the kind of semi-mold maker and foam running and with animatronics and stuff like that. Okay. But it was very like, dodgy animatronics. We got to meet another famous person now, John Nolan.
Yes.
He came and worked with us.
Did he?
He did 2 weeks with us on it while he was working, I think, on Harry Potter.
Yeah, so John Nolan was our trainee on The Prisoner of Azkaban, when it was the first Potter film that I did. I only did 2, Azkaban and Goblet of Fire. Mm-hmm. John Nolan was the trainee. And... just to go full circle on John Nolan now, he's now got his own very successful creature shop crew, whatever you want to call it, and does Jurassic Park and also. And we all joke saying that one day we'll be working for John, and all of us have worked for John pretty much. I don't know whether you have, but I certainly have.
No, well, I've worked for John.
And he still knows how to make my tea because he was the trainee.
From that day forward.
Yeah, so sorry, that's the background on John Nolan. So please, continue.
As time went on, we were doing bits and stuff. We got close with Neil Gorton at Millennium Effects. We wanted to keep the company going, but we wanted to try and subcontract.
Right.
So we went to him and we showed him our stuff, and he was quite happy with it. So he was like, "Look, I can throw you bits and bobs." Mm. So we got little bits and bobs of working.
Okay.
But as time went on, we ended up doing more in his workshop. I kind of started around the time that he got the first season of the new Doctor Who, the updated Doctor Who, the Russell T Davies Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And Tristan started working there as well.
Right.
And I think as times went on, me and Tristan weren't really seeing eye to eye.
Right.
And we were earning more money in freelance.
Yes.
So we decided to call it quits.
Right. Okay.
It's quite tricky for 2 creative people to be together.
Yes.
To kind of maintain that kind of stuff, And I think it worked out for the best of both of us because he was going in a different direction. He was a completely different person to me. He was very outgoing, very easy to talk to people, where I was more of the kind of practical kind of like doing stuff.
What was the name of your company?
Originally, I was called Life Effects.
Okay.
And I had a catchphrase, see how life affects you. Back in the day.
It's amazing.
It's genius.
Did you have that on your printed head paper?
I think so. Yeah.
See how life affects you.
When me and Tristan joined together, he was called Creations Effects.
Right.
So we ended up calling ourselves Life Creations.
I was going to go. I could have jumped there.
It's the obvious choice.
Yeah.
So we ended up basically working at Millennium Effects, which whatever the iteration of what it was back then. And then as times went on, we were there for a little while, off and on. We got to work at Image Effects as well, which is Bob Keane. The famous Bob Keane. Amazing fellow. What a great person to work for. A character.
Yeah.
But so fun to work for.
What was the name of his company?
It was Image Effects.
Image Effects. Yes.
Yeah, but before that he was Image Animation.
Animation, yeah.
we were working in like a cow shed
Yeah.
in Ivor down the road.
Yes, no, yeah.
Yeah.
I never went to that one. I went to his place in Pinewood.
Right.
When he had a place there.
He's like
yeah. Workshop 10, where we did.
Oh yeah. Where
Andor
we did
season
Andor.
1.
Yeah. I got to meet a lot of people that I kind of work with now.
Okay.
I got to meet Pete Hawkins
Right.
for the first time I met there. I got to meet Andy Calhoun, which I'd already met, but we kind of worked together.
Yeah.
Gustav.
Yeah. Gustav,
Josh.
I'm hoping to get on this podcast at some point. So yeah.
You should definitely try that. He's
he's
a character.
I know.
Josh Lee. I got to meet him and stuff like that. And various other people.
Josh Lee being my work wife, of course.
Yeah. I remember when Prometheus was happening. I didn't know much about Neil Scanlon at the time because I'd obviously read about him in the Jim Henson's book.
Okay. Yeah.
So I kind of knew of him, but I didn't know much about him. And then I remember Prometheus happening, and I remember phoning up. I think I heard that they were looking for someone. So I phoned Katie. That's the first time I ever spoken to Katie.
Katie Newitt?
Katie Newitt,
yeah. Okay.
And she said that they didn't have any work, so maybe ring back and stuff.
And so Katie Newitt being Neil Scanlon's right-hand person.
I'd say they're both kind of...
Yeah. They're a team.
They're a team, essentially. Yeah. They're as thick as glue, those two.
Yeah.
And then when episode 7 started, there was a friend of mine, a Spanish guy called Javier.
Bardem?
Javier Bardem, yeah. The famous guy. Javier... I can't even pronounce his surname. Coronar.
Javier. Just Javier. Javier's fine.
Yeah.
Javier,
the Spanish Javier.
Yes.
And I knew Javier was working on it, and I knew Pete Hawkins was working on it, and stuff like that. But I didn't have the courage to even try and get on it.
Right.
So I skipped out. Of it. And then as it was kind of coming near the end, I got the courage to phone Gustav.
Yeah.
And he was saying, we were coming near the end, but we've obviously got another film starting up, So I got a phone call from Guzzy say, would you be interested in coming in and doing 2 weeks work, like a trial period? And it was to make a stand for one of the characters, like a display piece.
Right, yeah.
Like a welded display piece. Bear in mind, I'd never really welded before this.
Yes, I can do it.
And of course, the adage is in our industry is you say yes, then work it out how to do it later on.
Yeah.
So I was like, no problem. I'll come in. So I came in for 2 weeks, and this was like 3 weeks prior to Rogue One kicking off. I came in, I did my 2 weeks. It took a little while longer. I had a couple more days, I think, because it just took a little longer than I expected. It all went well as far as I can tell, and then like a week later on, I started on Rogue One.
9 years later, here we are. I think it's about 9 years, isn't it?
And I've never left, really.
When you were at Life Creations, you were doing a bit of everything, bit of model making, bit of prosthetics. You've said that already, but so when you came into Star Wars, you were predominantly animatronics, or were you doing other things?
No, the deal was I came in as I don't remember how Neil described it, but essentially I was kind of a cross between the animatronic department and model making, because you already had. I'm just trying to think of a guy called Greg, who'd done some models.
Maker.
He was some of the model maker on episode 7. Yeah. And he kind of became the head of models for Rogue One. So I was kind of working in his department, but I was kind of like an animatronics kind of person. So if there was any mechanical needs.
Right, I see. So you mechanising the models.
Yeah, but I also did some model making as well. Yeah. So there was some model making bits. First time I ever met Lee Towsey.
Yes.
Sitting next to Lee desk.
Who was on this on that sofa just last week.
Yep. So when it came to an end of Rogue One, Neil said to me, do you want to stay how you are, or do you want to go into animatronics? Okay. And I was like, no, I want to go into animatronics. That's what I wanted to do. So I ended up then on episode 8 going forward. I ended up being into animatronics.
Okay. Yeah. And had you done much before that point? Were you learning on the job, the blagging it way? As we said?
I'd done some stuff, but nothing to the extent of what I'd done.
But you were working with people like Gustav, who's ridiculous, and were you just absorbing, like?
Yeah, I kind of use a weird analogy when it comes to animatronics. Yeah. Like it's a bit geeky, but like if you ever watch Star Trek, the baddies in Star Trek, the Borg, they assimilate stuff, and I always use that. Like for me, animatronics is like you can join a department without not knowing anything, but
Right.
you go around and you absorb
You simulate.
everyone else's techniques. You then go back on your desk and you do all that, but then you find new ways of doing things. And then what happens is everyone else comes around, sees what you do,
Right.
and then they then adapt that into their thing. So it's kind of a symbiotic kind of relationship, animatronics, which I like. I think it's great.
I'd like to have assimilated 7 of 9.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, right.
How different a show that happened when she joined.
I know, it really changed everything, didn't it? Sorry, I digress. As soon as you said the ball, I was just like 7.
But the funny thing is, even the producer, like who actually ended up marrying 7 of 9.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
No.
He ended up marrying 7 of 9. You know, there's a classic interview where he says, "Yeah, it all kind of changed on Voyager when we introduced the Borg."
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder why.
A lot of men at that point started watching the show more intently.
Yeah. Classic.
But you know, that's what they. Let's beat it around the bush. That's what they were aiming.
Of course
to
it
do,
was. Of course it was.
Yeah.
See, this is a weird thing because obviously I tend to work alone in electronics and software department, so it's quite hard. But the only time that did happen for me is when I joined Jim Henson's Creature Shop in the late to mid to late 1996, 97, 98. I worked there, and I remember going there thinking, I know everything. You know what I mean? Like, it was you get the job by saying, "Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it." And they phone me up and like, "Can you do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can do it." And I got there, and obviously I'd done a background in electronics and software engineering, but I got to Henson's and they had an electronics department, and there was like 4 guys, all with degrees and more than degrees, and they really knew their stuff, and I had to literally just pretend. And they go, "Oh, you know, so when the thing happens and the thing," and I go, "Yeah, just don't say anything, just listen and absorb and don't question."
And how old were you back then?
24, 25.
Right, okay.
And unbelievable. It was just a real eye-opener, and I suddenly realised I knew nothing, and I just sat and just absorbed and just took everything on. Although, weirdly, at the end of that particular project, in the middle of that project, they ended up renting my software off of me and not using their own.
Oh wow!
For Lost in Space. Yeah. Anyway, but that's why that assimilation thing. That was my moment. Was 3 years at Henson or 2 years at Henson's, and just going,
just
absorbing didn't know anything. Just be quiet and just absorb it.
Yeah. But I think it's the best way to learn, isn't it? Being in that environment. And
but it was for me. I wasn't very academic.
Right. So, I'm the same. Yeah, I was. You know, I didn't do very well at school. You know, I only did, which would have been GCSEs back then.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't do A levels. And stuff like that.
I did do an apprenticeship, which had a BTEC, ONC, and an HNC, and I did 1 year of degree and dropped out. But I just realised that it wasn't the way I learned. You know, I learned on the job, watching and studying, and the hard way, where you just have to do it through fear. You know.
Yeah, I think, but that's what they say in our industry, isn't it? It's like, you know, the sad thing is, a lot of the times, because we prototype everything and everything's kind of new, like you can't go into a job knowing everything. You have to almost say, you've got to put yourself in that space, you know, which is why the saying is, you know, you say yes and then you work out how to do it.
I know.
It doesn't work for everyone,
no,
but generally most of the time it works out fine.
Yeah.
It's a good, you know, good way of doing it.
So you're in the department and you're obviously going through from Rogue One forwards, and now you're a senior animatronics designer. Is that correct?
Since
we have different grades.
Since Acolyte and
and you started as an animatronic designer. Is that right?
I started as a junior.
Okay.
As a junior animatronics designer on Rogue One.
Right. Yeah.
And then on 8, I became an animatronic designer. Which I stayed through all the way through 9 and or season 1, and then when I started, I got bumped up to senior.
Nice.
So I skipped key.
Yeah. Is there a key as well in there somewhere?
Yeah, there's a key between senior and.
So you're animatronic designer, key animatronic designer, senior animatronic designer.
That's, I think, how it works. I had a discussion with a friend of mine about it, and he thought it was the other way around. It was senior and then key.
What's your most notable project? And this doesn't obviously have to be Star Wars. It probably is, I think, one of the characters or something. But what's your most notable thing you worked on and you're most proud of, let's say?
What So are you talking about project or are you talking about just anything?
A job, well, I guess a film-based one, I suppose, or something within your career in film that you've done, that you've gone, I'm really proud of that, mate, that build or whatever, or that head, that animatronic head. You know?
I think for me, it goes back to one of the first things I ever really built, and it's not even animatronics. It's 2 tubes from Rogue One. It was the first.
I could have picked it for you.
Well, yeah,
I had it written down somewhere.
Really, you had it written down as
Yeah.
what Tim's going to guess.
2 tubes.
Well, it's because I
Just
think
'cause it's an iconic. It's such an iconic.
yeah, you don't tend to, especially in the world of Star Wars now, because we do so much. You almost don't know what's going to become iconic. You build it, and you don't know what's going to be picked up.
2 tubes was a model sort of design. There was no animatronics, was it?
It was all model
it was
making. There was some machinery,
but it was beautiful design.
Yeah, I mean Luke Fisher, who designed it
okay.
originally. I think it was designed for Episode 7, I believe.
Right, and then got pushed. Yeah,
and it got pushed to Rogue One, and then it was picked up.
Yeah,
a lovely design. And I ended up doing. You know, it's very tricky because you don't want to sound like you take all the credit for it, because I didn't. I was a part of a team that brought 2 tubes to life.
Yeah.
You know, there was me. There was obviously Henrik. You know, who's our head painter at the time.
Yeah.
He did some lovely kind of stuff with it. He did his own, but his own things to it. We had obviously Elizabeth, who was a fabrication.
Yes, Elizabeth, lovely.
She did obviously all the fabrication stuff to it. So as overall, it was a massive team effort.
It's always a team effort. It's always a team effort.
Yeah. But for me, because it was the first time working on Star Wars, which was almost like a dream job. We worked on Rogue One, which, to my opinion, out of all of them, is the best Star Wars film.
That's a lot of people's opinion, I think. Yeah.
And it was a character that had become quite popular,
and has continued through.
Had more screen time than Boba Fett.
Really?
Yeah,
is that true?
Yeah, from the original series.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Boba Fett wasn't in it that long. So that was my most notable character.
Yeah.
From an animatronic perspective, the funnest character I ever built, and you barely see it, was the croupier from Episode 8.
Yeah, that is lovely. Yeah. The little tiny dude on the table.
Yeah. Because animatronics could be quite stressful, and it can be quite taxing. But for some reason, for that character, I'd found a kind of weird, kind of like, what's the word? I was in a really good place, and I remember just enjoying the process of making that character.
Yeah.
All the way up to it being on set and stuff like that. So for me, that was notably one of the funniest characters.
Yeah, and it's really fun performance as well.
Yeah.
Was it Dave Chapman?
It was Dave Chapman was doing. He was on sticks.
Yep.
And Brian Herring was under the table, moving it back and forth. Weirdly enough, it kind of got me a bit of a reputation of being the guy to go to for small creatures.
Okay, that's cool.
So after that, I ended up doing all the kind of smallest creatures as time went on and stuff like that.
Excellent. I'm just going to take you outside of the film thing for a second. Because one of the projects that you did, which I really liked, there was 2 things. There was one, you made a 1/3 scale. What was it? What's the scale droid you did?
39.1%.
39.1% scale droid of something you built for, what was that in?
So Rogue One, I worked with Lee, and we built a droid, the first track droid.
Yes,
I think,
that's it.
In Star Wars.
Star Wars,
I may be wrong. Maybe someone will tell me differently. But we built a track droid, which was a new design. Jake Lunt had designed it. And I got to work with Lee. I got to design and build the track system. Lee built all the body. And all that kind of stuff, and then we just kind of worked together on that. So between Solo and Episode 9, I started getting into understanding CAD, computer-aided design, and how that works. And I needed a project.
I see. So that was your CAD learning project.
That was my CAD learning project. Yeah,
brilliant.
And essentially, I built the 39.1% droid. The 39.1% comes from I had to source the tracks. I'd found the tracks. And I used that as its scale basis.
Right.
So I worked out the scale
forwards from the tracks.
Yeah. So that ended up being 39.1%. And obviously, I was chatting with Lee quite a bit about it and stuff like that. And then we set up a little club called 39.1%ers. And we shared the files. We did it open, so anyone could just download it and stuff like that. And it's quite a popular little club.
Mostly 3D printed.
Yeah, it's all 3D printed. With very minimal requirements to do and stuff like that.
And then you also did another nice project, which was a little desktop CNC machine, which I really liked. That was a fun. That was another in between jobs.
That was during COVID. I was working for John Nolan. I was there for. I was given a 4-week job.
Right.
I was due to start on Andor, and I was there for 3 weeks. And then on my 3rd week, we were told to all go home. Because of COVID. So we ended up having a year and a
Okay.
half off. And then during that time, I designed and built my first CNC machine, which was a big scale CNC machine. It was like 600 by, let's say 600 by 600.
Yeah.
I think standard size.
Yeah, 600 mil bed, square.
Actually, no, tell a lie, 400 by 600.
Okay.
When I was working on Andor season 1, I just started designing my smaller CNC.
Right.
And the idea for that was to try and incorporate, because a lot of the time we dry cut stuff, we use dry cut cutters. So I was going to try and incorporate everything into it. So it was like a one whole unit. And
self-contained CNC, desktop CNC.
Yeah. And then I think I ended up finishing it. So it would have probably been after season 1 of Andor when we had another break. Yeah. And then, basically built it and finished that.
You were going to do kits, but it's such a pain, isn't it, doing that whole thing? And everyone wants it. And like the support of doing things like that. When you build something and design it and everyone says, oh, can you release the files and all that? And then you're like, I'm going to be supporting this the rest of my life.
Yeah, I got close to doing it. I did offer people and I said, look, if you want the files, you're more than welcome. I think I was going to sell the plans or something. Yeah. And an idea of how to build everything, Yeah. See, my issue is I get very bored of things. Yeah. I get really interested in things.
Attention span,
And then after a while, I'm like, I just can't be bothered.
I'm the same, don't worry.
I was the same with 39.1s. I was like, 39.1s. And now I'm like, the club is running itself. I'm not really into that anymore. Same with this, and I had plans to take out all the electronics and put it into a separate box and all that, and make it less. I think I had a chat with you about it.
Yeah, we did.
Reducing down the spindle, and I had a chat with Josh and all that kind of stuff. But I just never finished it. Yeah. So I've never actually used it.
There's a DO sat over there, which was a load of people started printing them and making them, and they were like, "When are you going to finish it?" And I just,
when are you going to finish it?
I don't know.
There's a lot of people I keep saying on the thing saying, "When's the electronics?
When's you going to get the electronics?" And I was like,
"And how long has that been?"
6 years. Anyway, moving on. Moving swiftly on. Favorite movie character.
Favourite movie character?
Yeah.
Martin Briggs from Lethal Weapon.
Okay, interesting. Straight into there, straight away. Lee took a lot longer to think about that. Favourite film? And I know this is hard because there's so many genres.
Difficult.
I know. I mean, I could narrow it down to sci-fi if you like, or, And this will lead on to my next question. You've got to think carefully about this.
Oh, really? It's going to lead on to the next question.
Favourite film?
Oh, damn it. It's such a hard question. There's so many good films.
Well, I know you're a big fan of the 80s, as am I, 80s films. So give me your favourite 80s film.
You can't say that. There's like over 600 films in the 80s.
I know.
And all of them were brilliant.
But there are some really standout ones like Predator, for example, and Terminator. And
I think because I was so obsessed with Stan Winston during my early days, I would say Terminator was always an influence. Yeah. I did love Highlander.
Okay,
that was one of my favourite films during the time.
Interesting.
But I can't put my finger on my favourite film.
Not one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll give you the next question because it's even harder. Desert island film. You could only take one film to a desert island. You're going to watch that one film for the rest of your life. So it's either going to ruin it for you, or you're going to really like it to the point it's not going to ruin it.
Oh God, that's a really tricky question.
I know.
Can I have a TV show?
Well, that's a whole series. I mean, mind you, that you'd get just as bored. All right, take a TV show for you, Tim.
Well, I'd take The Expanse.
Right, okay.
If I had a choice. Nice. And I don't think I'd get bored of that.
No. Well,
you don't have to watch it to end and then watch. Can you go off and
You start in the middle and...
Yeah, I mean, you do other stuff like build huts.
Of course you would. Oh, no. That's all I'm saying is the only bit of entertainment you've got is one thing to watch.
Is one thing.
I mean, you've got a TV
Where do you
series.
get electricity from?
Just don't worry about the details. All right, you've got The Expanse, which I feel like is cheating, but anyway.
Okay,
I'll let you have it.
Let me think. Right, okay, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Fine.
Have I broken the rules?
No, it's fine. I just feel like you're still going to be stuck on there for the rest of your life watching The Expanse, and even hours and hours and hours and hours of footage eventually is going to get kind of a bit repetitive, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, I've rewatched.
You've already done it.
I've already watched it 5 times already, and I'm going to probably watch it again very soon.
Brilliant. Okay.
I feel
like that's definitely cheating then, because you already know you can do it.
Well, you didn't put the parameters down on what it is.
I did say film. Anyway.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. I asked to bring with you today an inspirational object. Did you bring something?
I
with
brought
you?
2.
You brought 2, yes. I think I can see them on the table.
And both of them have got little stories.
Yeah. Well,
one more than the other.
Okay, let's have the first one.
This book here.
Yeah, the No Strings Attached,
see it?
Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
So this became like the Bible
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah.
you know, books, like creature effects books.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And it was such a great book. So for anyone that was inspiring to get in the industry, I really wanted to work with Jim Henson.
Yeah,
I really wanted
that was
to be,
the dream, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, at that time, it was the only kind of company really that was well known for doing this stuff.
Yeah.
I never got the chance.
No.
I wanted the sticker.
Yeah.
You know, the sticker that everyone had on their things.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, and it's well, you know, and I really wanted that sticker.
Yeah.
I was like, if I have that sticker, it'd be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I never got it,
Yeah.
and now I don't want it because I'm never going to have the chance, and I don't feel like I earn. You know, I'd have to work.
You earn it, I suppose. Yeah.
But this book was so great. I remember going through it so many times, and the thing I love about this is now I'm actually working with a lot of people that are in that book.
Yeah. Our boss is in that book
exactly,
a lot.
Yeah. Kenny, who's our head of mold maker, is in this book.
Yeah.
Are you in this book?
No.
Okay.
No.
How comes you're not in this book?
Mostly, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm not in it. I was there for a couple of years, and most of this is prior to my time there, I think,
right?
From my recollection.
So this was a very you know, of all the books I own at home, this was, you know, as you can see, it's got a lot of wear and tear. It's been used and studied and you know, and all that kind of stuff. Trying to pick up like how these things done.
Yeah. So the one that got me, someone lent it to me at work when I was doing my apprenticeship, and that's when I started looking into getting into the film industry, not knowing what to do, and I found that course that you did.
Right.
Was a decade of ILM, and I went through that book.
Is that the black book?
Yeah, and it was just, you know, I was going through it and looking at models being rigged up by electronics engineers, and I was like, I'm an electronics engineer, and I suddenly thought, oh my God, could I work in the film industry? Is that feasible?
Really?
Yeah. So that was the one that got me. It was lent to me, and I had a copy of it. And then I was working in Poland, and somebody said, have you got that book? And I said, yeah. And he said, I can't get it here. This is way back in the 90s. So I gave him the book, and all I've got now is the dust jacket.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you not still got the book?
I never replaced it. No, never. Because then the next one that came out of that was called Into the Digital Realm. Yeah. And I've got that one, but the original one I didn't replace it. Now they're really expensive because they're, you know, they're not published. So.
Did you ever get the Stan Winston book?
No.
Right.
No.
He brought out a lovely book, which I got, and he was doing a signing in London, and I was going to go and get my book signed by him, but sadly, it wasn't long after that he died, and he had to cancel the signing, so I can only assume that it was just probably quite ill at that time. Yeah, so I never got to meet him, and he was one of my one of my idols back in the day.
Well, sadly, I never got to meet Jim.
Really?
No.
Well, even all the time you worked with him?
He died. Before, when I got there, he was already dead. Yeah,
right.
and sadly, so I met Brian and some of the other family, and you know, but never got to meet Jim.
Right.
So, yeah,
oh, that's sad, isn't it?
It was the back end of the Jim Henson Creature Shop. I mean, it was the London Creature Shop. They did mostly films, and it was the golden era had passed by that point.
Right.
So it was still fun. I learned so much there, but it was definitely the golden days were over. So.
When did you leave Henson's? Did you leave Henson's before they closed down?
Yes. Oh yeah, long before. Yeah, I was there from 96 to 99. It's just at the beginning of 99, probably something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So it was long before. They didn't shut till 2006ish, I think, something like that.
I did hear a sad story about when they closed down, that there was this loads of their stuff in bins.
Yeah, in skips.
Yeah. I managed to get hold of some old radio controls that I think just chucked in a skip.
They did. Yeah.
Like I think Buddy, that's in this book.
Yes, I worked on Buddy. That was the first film.
His head was in like just a skip,
really,
somewhere. You know, it was Yeah,
that was the first. I did 3 weeks on Buddy. That was my first job at Henson's. Jim Henson's Creature Shop was in Oval Road, and in Camden, and it was next to a Tesco's or something, or a Sainsbury's. I can't remember what it was, but we would quite often find stuff. People would come and raid stuff out of the skips, and we found Gary Oldman's fiberglass bust in a trolley in Sainsbury's.
Really?
Yeah, some kids had nicked it and were pushing it around the car.
They probably didn't even know.
They didn't know who it was. No, had no idea.
What's the Gary Oldman for then?
From Lost in Space.
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, it's hilarious.
They just nicked a
just,
mould.
they just nicked a mould and they were pushing it around in a trolley, not knowing it was Gary Oldman.
God, imagine if they knew that now. I don't know if it would be worth anything. But
But yeah. So what's your second item, Tim?
So
Oh, hello.
this is probably one of the first things that I ever made, and this would have been when we were based in Sheffield. I didn't know how to turn on a lathe.
Yeah.
I didn't know any engineering at that point. But when I was trying to get some work, even when I was in Sheffield, I was still trying to get work down south. And I remember coming down. I'd spoken to Image Effects at that time. They didn't have any work for me, and I came down and I had an interview with Nick Williams at
Yes.
Animated Extras.
Animated Extras, yeah.
And he looked through my portfolio. It was, you know, the portfolio back then was atrocious.
Yeah.
You know, it was just really bad stuff.
Yeah.
But Nick Williams was, you know, he was quite honest. It's like, you know, what people love is, you know, they love shiny things.
Yes.
They love, you know, like, you know, we've had a guy come in and he made a lovely stop motion hand. You know, and it was all made out of metal. It was lovely. You know, and that got him a job. So I went back and I was like, well, I'm going to build an animatronic hand.
Right.
And this was the first thing I did. I didn't understand anything about lathes or mills or anything like this. I'd already had a lathe and a mill back then from my, you know, from the days. So I decided to build this.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the first thing that I ever built. It was all running off servos, cables, and all that kind of stuff. And it all had this funky thing where, you know, the fingers splayed and, you know, and
so I can only see two servos. I guess a lot of it's missing now, is it?
Yeah. It became someone used it ages ago, and they used it in a photo shoot or something.
Okay.
Like and it kind of became the thing that kind of started getting me jobs. When we had our interview with Neil Gorton, he really liked it. You know, he saw it in the portfolio. He was like, love it, like stuff. So it was like, oh yeah, people do love shiny things.
Yeah.
So it became a representation of kind of my first kind of thing into the career.
And very Terminator-esque.
Yeah,
obviously. Yeah.
Because I love Terminator. It's a funny story, and I'm going to tell you it because it just makes me laugh every time. But years later on, when I was working and I tried to get work at Animated Extras, I remember phoning up and I got to speak to Pauline Fowler at the time, and it's the most funniest way to deal with a phone call, but also most emasculating way for someone who was trying to get in the industry. I remember phoning up Pauline Fowler and I was like, hey, you know, I'm Tim Berry. I'm looking for work as you know, animatronics person. And she was like, she was going, Tim Berry? Has anybody heard of Tim Berry? Anyone heard of Tim Berry? She goes, no one's heard of you. I'm sorry. Like this. And I was like,
that's so harsh.
Wow. Years later on, I was working with a friend of mine, and I got a phone call from Animated Extras asking if I was available for work.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But afterwards, me and my friend were like, all right, I should have gone Animated Extras. Anybody heard of Animated Extras? No, sorry, no one's heard of you. I don't hold any grudges to her. I'm sure she was doing it, as I said. You know, I don't know her very well.
Well, I got my first job with Neil Gorton. It was the same thing. I showed him a little animatronic skull that I'd made, and I didn't really know how to make the eyeballs, so I used roll-on deodorant tops,
done that
with pins in the back that moved the ball around.
Done that. Yeah.
And he went, I really like that. You know, like it's quite clever.
I'm going to use that.
I don't know how else to do it. You know, like
how times have changed now, though, isn't it? Like
I know.
You can go straight from college into a job.
I know.
Without
there were no courses,
without any worries. There was nothing back in the day.
No. The other thing I asked you was your favourite tool in your toolbox.
Oh no,
that's all right. Lee didn't bring his because he said it was a lathe.
Why didn't he bring it? That sounds like a lame excuse to me.
Really lame excuse. So, do you have a favourite tool in your toolbox? I've got one screwdriver I really like.
Really?
It gets used a lot. Yeah. Something about the size of it, and it's got like a twisty top on the top, so you can put it in your hand and do that, and it doesn't, you know, like the top stays where it is, and you just twist the screwdriver. You know, and it was one of the cheapest sets I ever bought.
Right.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. I think that's a good screwdriver. You know.
I did have a lucky ruler.
Oh yeah.
And it was given to me by my old college tutor up north.
Yeah.
And it was like a 6-inch ruler, and it had like, I think it had been CNC'd, but it had like a little bit CNC'd out in the middle,
chunked out.
And I remember I was always like, I've got to find this ruler, and I couldn't do a job without this ruler.
Yeah.
I've kind of gone beyond that now, so it may have been lost into the ether. But obviously now in our industry, we all talk about the infamous Facom
Yes.
114.8.
I know,
tool,
right, which I don't own.
which
But,
we most of us own it. Like no one really uses it.
no, you only get them second hand, right?
You can't
If you can get that.
if you can find them. Yeah, Facom stopped it, and you can't find them.
Yeah. Nico was boasting he has two to me, and I was like,
He hasn't got two. This goes down to the fluke of Nico. Do your audience know about Nico?
Nobody knows about Nico.
Okay,
no one's going to know about Nico.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
No,
because he's only been working in the industry now for what, 2
years,
2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And he came straight out of college, straight into Star Wars, which was like, like the Cinderella story.
Yeah.
And we had this thing of like, you're not a true mech until you've got a pair of Facom 114.8.
Okay. I see.
So we had 3 other people that started at the same time as him.
Yeah.
Because he's from Belgium, he managed to get onto the Belgium like Gumtree or something and managed to find a pair from that.
No.
Because that's how fluky he is. So he's got a pair when there are other people that haven't got it.
Who deserve it more.
I don't know. I mean, he
deserves. He's very good. He's very good.
He deserves everything he gets. Bless him. Okay.
If you'd like to pick a dice up and roll it, just roll it and let me know let's have a look what number you get. Number 5. Number 5. 1 second. I've got a feeling that Lee rolled 5.
Really?
Yeah, let me just check. Roll again.
Really? Okay.
Roll again. 1.
1.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. Let me have a little look in here.
I like the Amazon box.
Yeah, I know.
You're using.
So this is a memento for visiting Devon. A little fridge magnet there. So they're all different. This is why you have to roll for it. You see. So.
And do you know the best thing about this is it's got a seagull on it.
You got the seagull.
And I support Brighton and Hove Albion, which nicknames.
Give it back.
Nicknames are the seagulls.
Is it?
Yeah.
There you go. You're welcome.
Oh, bless you. Thank you, Matt.
So I've got one last question for you. Cheese then beans or beans then cheese?
On what?
Baked potato.
Cheese then beans.
That's what I said. Lee was beans then cheese.
Well, he's an idiot.
I know. I'll say no more. Thank you so much, Tim, for coming. Don't destroy the mic.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me down here.
If people want to find you online, where would they find you? Timatronic?
I don't really have much of a thing. No. I'm only on Instagram, which is under Timatronics.
Spelt Timatronics.
T-I-M-A Tronics.
Tronics, okay. Timatronics on Instagram. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
If you've enjoyed this video podcast, then please do like, share, subscribe, and leave your comments and feedback. You can find further information on this episode's guest in the description section, including links to their social media. Bye for now.